So let's start with, obviously, the majors. And it's important to sort of level set where we are in the majors. And the reason I say that is because the majors are really weird in a lot of aspects, right? So we have a pattern here. We have a card, sort of wandering card, Lamat. The fool wandering around, being chased by a dog, and his pants are being ripped off. And then we have 1 through 9. And 1 through 9 are these average, everyday people that we might meet at some point. So we have these average, everyday people, from a chariot driver to maybe a judge to maybe an old, wise old man to a pope and a popess, an emperor and an empress and a magician, sort of almost like a street merchant with that, right? So that covers 1 through 9. And then we get into these outer worldly cards, cards that don't really fit with the day-to-day patterns that we had in some of the other cards. We have a wheel with different creatures on it. Then we have a lady opening a mouth of a lion. How many times do you see that, right? A man hanging, seems to be content, just chilling out. And we have death himself, along with winged people pouring things between goblets, sort of having some odd naked beings below them. And then all of a sudden, in the 16, we have things appearing out of the sky. We have these dots, or these points in the sky. We have stars in the sky. We have licks of sunlight coming out in 3 of the other cards. And again, we have winged people, and then this unusual combination of everything at the end. So we have basically 4 sort of sets of cards within here, all within the same majors. So why is this important? From Numerology in the Divine Triangle book, we're talking about Pythagoras, sort of the father of numerology himself. He's talking about the mystical significance of numbers, noting that numbers 1 through 9 stand macrocosmically for universal principles. On a personal level, microcosmically, they stand for characteristics, abilities, and events. This is the father of numerology. Talking about 1 through 9 is sort of like the mundane almost. By the way, link to the book and link to Pythagoras in the video description, as well as on screen. Read all about Pythagoras and numerology and the birth of numerology and the father of numerology. So, characteristics, abilities, and events. Day-to-day people. Day-to-day abilities. And these are all people with a job as well. These are all people that have jobs, have things to do, right? We have the street merchant. He is busy with his particular job. We have the pope, the popess, the emperor, the empress. We have the sort of the lovers, right? Sort of moving along, doing things. We have the chariot driver almost. And then we have, obviously, the judge, the justice, and then we have the wise man who could be, again, paid. So everyone has their role, everyone has their place. But again, as we move through into the 10s, higher than the 10s, this person really doesn't have, or the beings, the higher beings, these unusual beings really don't have a job or have their place. They're sort of above ground. So you have the mundane, you have the out of place, the mundane, the above and beyond, sort of the ethereal, right? Not really grounded. They don't have a job. It's not an individual person. It's sort of this heavenly or ethereal idea as we get past 9. So 1 through 9 is also present within the minors as well. And this sort of gives us an idea of what we can do with the minors. So when we get to numerology, we've already started without getting to it. We'll talk about how 1 through 9 can relate back to these, can relate back to the day-to-day jobs, the day-to-day type principles, the boring people, the standard people that we have within here that can be related back to the minors as well. So that's sort of what we're dealing with the majors, and a quick overview of the majors. So let's dive right in with Lamat and see what he is up to. The town vagrant. He's got the jester's hat almost. He's wandering around, and the dogs are literally chasing him out of town. So I find it interesting with all the variations of this card, just how much color variance and how much sort of important features are different between the cards. So the first thing you'll notice is that the ground is so varied between all of these different versions of the card. Some of the ground is completely yellow, like the sun is just hitting the whole thing. The one we're looking at, it's just yellow on the backside, meaning the sun was in the past almost, right? And in the version on the right, we have a blue in the middle and yellow on both sides, like the present has a blue theme, but the past and the future, in other words, the left and the right, have a yellow theme. In other words, it's sunlit, right? So if you look at the other differences that are cool, again, we're talking about the ground variance. Ground has a lot of differences, right? The facial features are different as well. Now, white in some books means a lesser person or a not that important of a person, right? They're not sort of have not highlight. They have sort of a color in their face, sort of a flesh tone in their face. And in some of the cards, you have that flesh tone, but in some of the cards, you don't, right? But it's interesting that they substituted the flesh tone as his outfit. So the flesh tone on the right has on the bag, on the sleeve, and on the pants as well. So the other difference is in one of these versions, his outfit appears to be falling apart, right? So his outfit is falling apart. One of the balls has fallen off of his outfit and is sort of bouncing along the ground. Now, in other versions, we have the flesh sort of exposed of his butt as the dog rips into his pants. But on the right, that particular version, it wants it covered up. That seems to be important in some of these to be covered up. That's not to mention the outfit differences as well. The cane or the stick that he has is sometimes sunlit and it's sometimes red. It's pointed red towards that action, that fire. And sometimes it's yellow, sort of just being in the moment, right? The sunlit yellow being in the moment type thing. And then the whole outfit is red on the left, but it's red, green, and blue on the right. So it's interesting that all of these variations in colors, variations in themes, between all of the different versions of this card, it seems that there's a lot of maybe interpretation or disagreement at times on what is important or what is thematic about this card. So it's just fascinating how many different takes you have on such a simple card in color theme, in outfit, in how the ground is laid out, even how the dog is laid out. So it seems to be a lot of disagreements here between the various people who did this. And if you look at the Rider-Waite, Smith, and all of the variances of that, I mean, you have deep complexity here too within the different types of things that people are trying to convey or the different artists are trying to convey to you about this particular card. So in a more modern deck, I guess, I would say traditional, but this is more traditional. In a more modern deck, we have the Fool. We have the Fool. He's taken a leap off the cliff. He's sort of just moving along. In the Rider-Waite-Smith sort of schema, we have the Fool's journey. So he is 0. He is the beginning. But you'll notice in the TDM, he actually has no number. And yet there's a spot for a number. So if you compare this with, let's say, the Magician again has a spot for a number. And he actually has a number, but the Fool does not. And it's interesting that that spot was left open, or that gap was left open. It was like a number was going to be assigned, or a number was about to be assigned, but it never was. So in this particular case, we have the Fool sort of walking on varied land. Now, the obvious companion that we have with the Rider-Waite-Smith, where we have the dog companion and whatnot, he has a companion that's sort of working against him. And in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, we have the companion as sort of literally like a companion. It's someone that can come along with us. It's someone that can run along with us on our adventure. And we have our adventure looking up. And traditionally, the Fool is looking up. And indeed, in this deck, the Fool is looking up as well. Not really paying attention to where he's going, not paying attention to where he's walking. But within the TDM, he's not really in any danger. He's not about to go off the cliff, or he's not about to walk into a scenario that he doesn't know, right? So he is looking up. He's not really paying attention, but he's not really in particular as much danger as you have in the Rider-Waite-Smith clones. Now, he also has the traditional sack on sort of a stick, and the sack on the stick sort of contains his possessions. So it feels almost like that he's not really paying attention to his pants getting removed and his butt being exposed by the dog or the cat or whatever that is. So he doesn't really care, and he doesn't really pay any mind to it. So normally if that would happen, you would immediately look down, pull your pants back up or whatever. So it's almost like he's being chased as well. So within here, you don't really get a feel that the dog is chasing the Fool. You get the feel that the dog is a companion to the Fool. And yet in this one, he seems less like a companion and more like he's attacking or chasing the Fool as well. So it's a varied difference here that we have between that, right? So you have this almost a weakness that the Fool has with his butt being exposed or being chased, and you get more of a fool, a literal fool, or somebody that's not prepared, somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, somebody that's just, living in the moment a bit too much and not really prepared, or just sort of wandering around almost, feeling from this. Now, the sack could indicate his burdens or something that he's carrying around that he should not be carrying around. But overall, it seems that we just have this odd situation with the Fool. So as far as colors go, we have a little bit of yellow. Yellow representing sort of where the sunlight is, right? Where the sunlight is hitting. Sunlight is hitting sort of his hat. And he does look like a bit of a jester's hat. So again, we're pointing back to maybe the Fool, maybe a joker, maybe somebody who doesn't pay attention, acts a fool. You just don't know at this point. So we have a mixture of the yellow. The yellow sort of represents that golden sunlight that's coming down. We have that on his hat, and we have that a couple of places on the ground. Now note that some of the places on the ground, again, the colors are different amongst different decks, but we're using the Jodorowsky deck for now, and we're going to stick with that pretty much for a lot of this. Now, he has a green and red mix. What does that mean? Red is action. Red is fire. It's got that fire element to it, that action element. Things are going places. We're doing things. And you see sort of that with the Fool, right? He's got the red cane or the red stick as well. And that sort of indicates the action, that moving forward. And you'll notice that he's moving this way, which is the future, or he's moving towards this card. So if we had another card over here, right there, the Magician, for example, he would be moving towards the Magician. You, of course, have watched my complete tarot course where I go over movement and card interaction. We have an interaction between the Fool and the Magician in this particular spread. So that's important to know. It's very important to know that we have a card interaction between these two characters. So in that particular spread. So he's moving it this way. Now if we have a spread that goes past, present, future, he's moving towards the future. No matter what your spread, he's moving that away. So you definitely want to note that within your reading. And again, red means action. We have that forward movement. He is going forward. He is sort of rocking that particular direction. We also have green. Green, of course, being plants, and green being growth. Green being growth. It could be a factor of the Fool is growing into this action. The Fool has a combination of red and green. He's growing into this action, or he's growing from this action. So it could be a learning process as well, where the Fool is learning. He's growing better. Maybe he's growing in knowledge, or he's growing in life experience by moving towards the future. So let's look at how we would use this in a reading. So let's talk about the Fool and this particular Lamate and this particular spread. So I know you don't know what this card and this card is yet, but we're going to give a quick preview. This is a 3. A 3 is sort of a birth of action or a beginning of where you actually take some action or take some meat, right? So it's a birth, more or less, or a beginning or productivity or an action or things like that. So we have this beginnings of cups, the emotion. We have this emotional boon or emotional thing that happened, and the emotional thing sort of caused us to go on this particular journey. And again, we don't really care. We are unprepared. We don't care. We're unprepared. We're taking a lot of this with us, but we are in action. We are sort of growing. Now, there's a lot of red over here, and the red again points to that action or that burst of action type thing. So we have this burst of action. We need to get something done. So we started on this journey. We're moving towards the future, right? And in the future, the destination over here, as far as the movement is concerned, is going for the 5 of Wands, which is a difficult place to be. A 5 is not exactly the most happy, joy card or the best number, and especially when we get to the Wands. So it looks like we're going to have to sort of meet some challenges over here. We're going to have to meet some challenges. Now, that's a problem. That's a problem. Why is that a problem? Because he's unprepared. He's unprepared. He doesn't care. That's an issue. So if somebody's asking about a particular situation, we need to tell them there's an issue coming up. We need to tell them there's some problems coming up, some difficulties coming up that you're going to have to sort of be aware of or try to deal with, right? Because we have that 5 and it is Wands and it's a lot of red. We have a lot of red throughout. And it's going to be a bit of a difficulty. So it's time to get that unpreparedness and get prepared. So the advice in this particular is to get prepared, to use that green, to use that growth and get started on that, because you could run into a situation where you have major issues over here. So get prepared. You're coming from this sort of this emotional birth or this emotional movement that I need to get stuff done, I need to do, and here I go. But you're not prepared for the consequences of that. So that would be this particular combination. So here we could have a situation where we're about to meet someone. We're moving towards us. This person's looking at us. The person is looking at us, and we're about to meet this person. Again, we'll cover all the rest of these cards later, but I told you we're going to read. We're reading now. So we're about to meet this person, and we're unprepared. Again, we're staring up. We don't care. We also could be bringing in baggage from our previous relationship. Over here, we have sort of choices. The 2. We have choices, and choices with Wands. In other words, we had a couple of choices with action, and that's going to be something to where we had to make a choice. And when we made the choice, we're going to end up meeting someone because of that choice. This is important. See, we're already reading. It's important. We have choices to make. We have to make those choices with action. We're doing that, but we're unprepared. We're running into somebody as a consequence of this. Could that be good? Could unpreparedness be good at certain points? Sure. Sometimes you just need to relax and let life happen. And you meet somebody and it could be good. But within the context of this situation, you need to ask your querent, what's going on? What is this choice that you made, or what sort of choices sort of have been bombarding you that's led to this journey, and are you taking your baggage with you? Are you taking this baggage with you? Are you unprepared? Do you have something sort of chasing you, or do you feel like you need to be in a hurry, or you need to be, you have something chasing you, something sort of, as a pending something to think about, right? Something to think about, something to deal with. So again, a lot of different factors here, a lot of different questions that lead us to this. Again, with the green, we have a lot of green over here. We could be looking at growth, mutual growth between these two characters, between these two people. And it is coins or pentacles as well. So that could be more stuff. So we have a ton of stuff. We have a 3-card reading we could talk 15 minutes about. But again, we're concentrating on the Fool for now, Lamate for now. the unpreparedness. Are you taking baggage? Do you have everything that you need? Are you not really paying attention? Is this something you didn't plan for? Is this unplanned, right? What caused you to have this red here and caused you to make this action? Was it the choices, or was it an independent thought, hey, I need to take this action and move towards this particular person? A lot of discussion here and a lot of good stuff. So let's do one more reading and we'll wrap up the Fool. So now I have this rock solid stability. Emotional stability, rock solid, the 4, a very stable number, rock solid stability and an emotional stability as well. We have that emotional stability, and then all of a sudden we have this sort of this discontent at the next thing, right? This discontent, a bit maybe overflow, a bit maybe too much as far as the swords are concerned, maybe too much overload, too much mentally stable. As far as this, maybe too much mentally, and it's caused us to go on this journey. And again, we're unprepared. This could be a job reading. We had a very stable job. It was an emotionally stable job. I knew my boss. Everything was pretty good. You know, things were going quite well, but it was just becoming too much. The workload was becoming too much. So we have a story over here. So the workload was becoming too much. Maybe that 10 was a bit of an overflow. Maybe it was just a little too many factors to do, right? So again, with the swords of communication, that the work, the learning, maybe there was a bit too much. So I had to leave. I had to quit. I had to go and go forth on my journey. Unfortunately, when I quit and I moved, I was the fool. I was quite unprepared. I did not look for a new job first. I did not have a new job lined up. It was sort of iffy with the new job, and now I'm sort of unemployed, and now I maybe have a problem. And so this tells a story here as far as a work reading goes. I'm taking the baggage from my previous work, the baggage again, but I am on this journey, and I did have some of this green, some of this growth come out of there, but I did feel like I was sort of being chased, or I was a bit unprepared as I left, and I didn't do the necessary steps as I left, and then we get into this situation where, you know, I'm kind of at dire straits as far as financially goes, right? So you could have another card over here with the financially, but we're on this journey and we're moving away from these other cards. So again, another interesting reading, and that's my last reading for Lamat, or the Fool. So grab this card. Your homework is to grab this card and sort of meditate on it. See what other features that you have here. See what are the things that you can notice from the card, and see what types of feeling that you have. And how can you relate? How did you move forward without being prepared? Did you take some baggage, or was this your luggage? Was this actually things that you needed, or again, were you unprepared and things like that? Did you feel like you were being chased? Did you feel like you were being sort of ripped up a bit, or did you feel unprepared, like your pants were down and you didn't even notice, kind of unprepared, right? So there was almost like this sunlit in this particular deck. Again, other decks don't have this particular color pattern, etc. Did you feel unprepared? Did you feel like that the sunlit pattern over here didn't reflect into the future? So we had sunlit in the past. Maybe it was sunlit in the past and everything was pretty golden in the past, but as we move forward, it's not so much. It's more blue at that point, right? So not all the ground is sunlit. How does that affect his decision? How does this? So meditate on this. Think about it, meditate on it, and figure out how all of these factors work together and how that you can read with Lamat. And did you know that I had a Patreon? That's right. Go to patreon.com, Tarot Oracle. My supporters are Adam G., Alley Cat, Annie Lamaster, Brianna Santiago, Carmen Gabriano, Carolyn Bouchard, Crystal McGinn, Fatima, Galatia 9, Gary Fink, Irina, Jessica Mante, Kim Wilson, KSW, and La Ami, Richard, Zach, Shintaro Kuga, Sanai Zamora, and Linda Lee. Thank you so much for being my supporters, and thank you so much for all of your support over the time that I've been doing this. I really appreciate it. This helps me with the bills around here. It helps me with the live streams. It helps me with all the tutorials I do. So I greatly appreciate it if you could throw a bit of support my way. And as always, please hit like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching Tarot News, and we'll see you next time.